Okay, it looks like we've had participants join us and we're streaming. So let's go ahead and get started. We will start, as we always do, with a Pledge of Allegiance. So Mackenzie will put up a picture of the flag and then we will say the pledge. Or I'm sorry, Leah, that's you. Well, let's just go ahead and we can do it without flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. And I have asked Commissioner Wright to share a thought or prayer for us today, and so I will turn the time over to her.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Today, I wanted to sort of give a two-pronged thought. There's a lot going on in our world right now, obviously, and I think it's really important for us to think about our effect and how we individually affect those people around us, our communities, and different things. So two thoughts. One, really related to this Planning Commission and the laws that govern us and the ability that we have to make decisions. The thought is stay committed to your decisions, but stay flexible in your approach. And I think I've seen my own commissioners, fellow commissioners, give really great ideas, some flexibility to some developers or to some homeowners or some people that need some flexibility, but as long as we stay committed to those decisions that we have made as a city and the laws that we follow as commissioners. And then the last little part of that is the world is changed by your example, not by your opinion. And to that I say, I have lots of opinions, and a lot of us on our Planning Commission, rightfully so, have opinions on how we can apply those decisions, the laws, and apply the different rules that need to be followed with these decisions. But I think as we think about not only Planning Commission, but the different experiences that we're in every day, if we can remember that having an opinion on Facebook is one thing, but being an example will actually change the world, not just having an opinion. So that's my thought today, and I hope that we can follow those words. You're muted, Shaylin.
Man, I clicked the button. Okay, let's try that for the third time. Thank you very much. Item number 1 on our agenda is a zoning map amendment for Summerhill Lane development. It looks like that one, I'm assuming that they've requested that it be postponed until July 8th. Is that right, Mackenzie?
It's a noticing issue. So that's why both of the zoning amendments were postponed.
Got it. All right. So we'll postpone that one until the July 8th meeting and we'll revisit it. Item number 2 on our agenda tonight is an administrative decision involving a conditional use permit. This involves the Centerpoint Theater concert in the parking lot. So I will turn the time over to staff.
Okay, thank you, Chair Heyman and members of the commission. So this application is from Centerpoint Legacy Theater, who, just for reference, Centerville City is part owner. Centerville City owns the building and Centerpoint Theater leases it from the city. So they've already been working with city staff to get their approval before tonight so that the city is aware of it. There's only a few things I want to point out from the staff report about this conditional use permit. First of all, I put in all of the requirements from the code into the staff report. It makes really long, but most of it's just the code. So they've asked that they can receive a conditional use permit for recreation and entertainment outdoor use. So that is a conditional use in the public facility high zone. And it's conditional, or the reason we're not making it an accessory use yet is that it's unusual circumstances. They hope to stay indoors, but the Davis County Health Department put in some restrictions that make holding their performances indoors really difficult. So they've asked for this outdoors conditional use permit. They have already stated that they won't go past 10 p.m. performances. They'll be on Friday and Saturday with the possibility of Mondays. They've talked to the South Davis Metro Fire for fire access and restrictions. They've talked to Centerville City Police Department, and they've gotten the okay with each of them with the plan that they have in place. I'm just going to put up the map they provided. Okay. So this is the map, and let's see, there we go. So this is the theater, and the stage will be right here on the south end, and then cars will be parked in these blue spaces. The South Davis Metro Fire stipulated that cars could not be parked in access lanes. So this current map looks like there are cars parked in access lanes, but one of the conditions staff recommends and that the South Davis Metro Fire Association requires that there not be any cars in those access lanes so that emergency vehicles, if something goes wrong, can have full access. Let's see if there's anything else on this one that I wanted to note. Staff is behind this application, and we've recommended approval with the conditions provided in the staff report.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Question for you. So with regard to the map that you had just put up, if the cars can't be parked in the fire lane, does that mean they have to take out, or an access lane, does that mean they have to take out the first row and they can only have 2 rows? Am I understanding that correctly?
That's how I'm understanding it. But I think they could also work it so that they have staggered rows inside that parking island. There's 2 rows, stagger them. They've worked out with the county how to follow social distancing while also having people in their vehicles. So I know that the parking lot won't be full to capacity.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was going to wonder that same thing because they already have the 2 stalls anyway. So I feel like they could make that work without being in those access lanes.
Right. I believe that they can make it work without being in the access lanes.
Mackenzie, I got a couple questions for you.
Okay.
There was a note in your staff report about the theater has all the equipment they need and restrooms. Are they bringing in portable restrooms? Or are they just hoping that people take care of business before the 45-minute show and then they can get home afterwards? What's the scoop there? I just from a logistical standpoint, just so that
Right.
we're aware.
So they do have 2 or male, female bathroom available within the building, but it will only be accessible with staff, with a staff escort, and they have cleaning procedures in place. So, I mean, I think the general idea is that people won't need to use it, but in case they do, they have some protocols.
So they'll rely on the interior restrooms if need be.
That's correct.
Okay. And then the other question is, you put an expiration on your suggested motion for August 11th. Do we feel that Centerpoint, and maybe they'll bring it up as an applicant in their comments, do we feel like they're going to come back and try and ask for that to be extended? Is there a reason why we wouldn't give them more time, or what's the rationale behind? Because I put a note about an expiration, but what's the rhyme or reason to August 11th?
In their application, they requested the weekends up until August 8th. And so extending it to August 11th will give them that Monday rain delay or weather delay if necessary. So in their application, they were only anticipating doing these performances until August 8th.
Okay, so we don't anticipate them even going into September, October.
They didn't anticipate it, so I didn't anticipate it either.
Okay.
But I guess
Okay.
it's a possibility.
I just wanted to give them that flexibility if we as a commission felt like that was appropriate as well. So that's all I've got.
Any
I have a
other
question.
questions? Go ahead.
I do. I just was wondering on that north street that goes through Centerpoint that goes all the way down to Chick-fil-A, will that be open? Will they have access to go use that, or will that be closed off?
Let me pull up that screen again, just so that I believe there was some markings on it. I don't know if it will be open to the public since it is a private parking lot. I know they will be using it as access. So they will have staff at each entrance and exit, making traffic flow easier to the site, and so that people don't stop where they shouldn't. So I don't think it will, during the performances, still be accessible for Chick-fil-A.
Okay, just wondered. Thanks.
Yep.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we'll invite the applicant. Hold on. Can you guys hear that in the background? Sorry. I can't mute my home phone, and I'm still so anachronistic that I have a home phone. So let's go ahead and invite the applicant to step forward. And by step forward, I mean, if you are on video, go ahead and start your video. To join us if you're on. There we go. All right, if you'll just introduce yourself for us and then
absolutely. I'm Jansen Davis, the executive director at Centerpoint Theater. Actually, I want to go back and answer that question about the north drive-through. That will be accessible. The anticipation actually is to utilize that as the entry for cars to come in, and then we will do some staging before each of the concerts in that west parking right next to the building. And so there still will be access on that north side throughout the evening. But yeah, we're hoping that this will be kind of a great thing for the community. We're so far, the folks that we've talked to about this have really been excited about having something, but also having a safe way to celebrate a little bit. I know there's a lot going on or not going on really in the community because of the COVID thing. And so we were trying to find something that we felt like would be something to do on a weekend evening and not compromise, you know, the challenges that we're dealing with, the restrictions that we're dealing with. And so yeah, we're hoping that this will be a great opportunity throughout the summer. Do you have questions for me?
So I have two questions for you. Other commissioners may have other questions. So respond to me about this not being able to park in the fire, or I keep calling it a fire lane, in an access lane. What are your thoughts there?
It looks to me, as you guys were asking that question, we should be able to make some adjustments. The reason for us not necessarily using the exact parking spaces is partly just sightlines. It will be a live concert, and so we can go through that process and we can look to make some adjustments to that. And I believe that we'll be able to manage that without any problem. You get on a picture from Google Earth and you're trying to map things out, and sometimes that's not exactly how things will go. And so this helps me to be able to know that we need to make those adjustments, and that really shouldn't be a problem, I don't think.
Okay, and with respect to that north alleyway, so
Yeah.
Am I understanding you correctly? So you're gonna have staff presumably at both the east and the west entrance directing people?
No, so what will happen is we'll have a sign as far as entry to go to that location, but if you look on the map and you see where the parking structure is,
Mhm.
there's an access into that parking area to the west of the building that runs along that drive space. It's there that will allow people into the parking area. So they'll be coming off of the driveway into the parking space so that we don't have to block off anything as far as the driveway itself goes.
I see. So that back north alleyway, that's gonna stay completely open.
That will
Like
be
there aren't
open.
gonna be cars or driving or parking along back there.
No, we're not restricting anything there.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have a couple. Hi,
Sure.
Jansen.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you, Becky.
Good to see you. I am just wanting to sort of related to what Commissioner Hayman was talking about, Chair Hayman. I'm just concerned two things about the safety of the actors. Since the staging area is going to be in the parking area and then the stage is across that way, are you going to be limiting traffic once that starts? And what if someone needs to leave? How are you going to kind of make sure that, you know, having to travel from that area to the stage?
So the staged area, what we have is we've got staff members who will act as, I call them basically parking ushers, okay? And so we'll be in the process of assigning places, and they'll be there to be able to guide them on exit, or if they need to leave, or all of that sort of thing. They'll be there throughout the entire concert period. The concert period is short. We don't anticipate, unless it's in a major emergency, which of course we would have access. That's kind of why we're distancing the rows a little bit too, was to make sure that we had the ability to make that access or that exit if we needed to. Yeah, as far as the actors go, all of their access to the stage that we put up actually comes from the theater itself. There's an entry right there close by. We'll have all of the safety issues that we take care of with any staff member or anything like that there with them. We have our ushering folks to help guide the traffic back and forth. We'll have masks on, be able to do scans of ticketing and stuff like that. So we're doing our best to make sure that we follow all of those guidelines. And then as far as safety goes, the stage itself actually does not go out over the top of the walkway. You can actually walk in front of the stage on the sidewalk. So it keeps them away from that drive area.
Okay. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And the second question was, again, sort of related to actor safety. And I think you kind of, talked about this, but obviously this, we don't have anything in our city code that's requiring you to do anything for COVID, but I'm just interested to know how you're, as a public service, for our community, how you're also, what you're going to be doing for the actors that are going to be kind of in close quarters with each other.
Yeah, we continue that from the aspect of being off stage, we would still have them using masks. They'll be distanced for the most part. There's plenty of room back there. We're not dealing with a large amount of actors. We're actually, the performers are basically 6 plus an MC. So the management of spacing and movement all is quite easy from the standpoint of when we get inside the building, especially because we've got plenty of space.
Yeah,
we can spread them out in that section of the building. And working with them as far as having sanitizer, and we clean pretty regularly, all of that kind of stuff. We're following those guidelines.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a quick question. Yeah, so just to help kind of set some scope and stuff like that, eyeballing it based on the map with the little periwinkle colored rectangles, I guess that's what color they are. It doesn't appear that there's really, even if you're sold out, it doesn't appear that there would be more cars there than you might have for a regular performance inside. Is that a fair statement?
In that space, that's correct. We're actually anticipating a maximum amount of about 61 cars. What we've done is we've extended the distance between them. We're basically distancing center points of cars, if you will, at about a 10.5 foot distance, so that there's some distance between the cars and they're not just packed right in there. Our encouragement, obviously, and the way we're handling this with the idea of broadcasting to their FM radio allows them to stay in their car. And we'll encourage that throughout. If somebody needs to get out or go to the restroom, of course, they can cross through, but I think there's going to allow enough space that people will feel pretty comfortable.
Yeah, and then so just from a traffic perspective, other than the fact that everybody's already in their car, there's not necessarily going to be any more traffic hitting the streets at one time than it, like I said, if it was an inside performance, a regular inside performance, correct?
From like an exit standpoint, absolutely not. In fact, what we're working on, and the map that you have doesn't have all of these details, but we're going to be able to take each one of those roads, even if it's full, and send them out a different exit and different directions. And that's something we kind of worked with the police department on to make sure that we felt like we could move people out in an orderly manner, and make sure that we didn't put a lot of stress on those streets close by.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions for the applicant? If not, this matter has been scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll take the opportunity to open a public hearing and invite any member of the public who wishes to speak to this matter to come forward. And if anyone is on Zoom and would like to speak, there is if you click on the participants in the bottom, there's a raise hand feature. Leah, do we have anybody on the phone that is waiting to speak?
I think Leah signed off.
Leah signed off, that's true.
Yeah, but I don't see anybody. Mackenzie, do you see anybody?
I don't see anyone either.
All right, and I'm not seeing any hands raised, so seeing no one come forward, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you very much. We appreciate it, and we can let you go as well if you want to close out your video there. Any further questions for staff or further discussion on this one? I'm delighted, just as an editorial comment, I'm delighted to see that Centerpoint Theater is coming up with a way to make it work, notwithstanding COVID. So if there's no further discussion or comment, the chair will entertain a motion.
I hereby make a motion to approve the use permit request for Centerpoint Legacy Theater at 525 North, 400 West, subject to the conditions 1 through 6 in the staff report, with suggested reasons for the action A through C.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate? If not, we'll start with you, Commissioner Daly.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox.
Aye.
Commissioner Summerhays.
Aye.
Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much. Moving right along to item, say what?
I'm delighted as well.
I'm looking forward to it. Item number 3, we have another administrative decision. This one involves the Bank of America's conceptual site plan. So I will turn the time back over to staff.
Okay, hopefully you can see a landscaping plan on the screen. All right, thank you, Chair Heyman and members of the commission. As indicated, this item is an administrative decision. It's a unique one because we have an existing developed site that has an approval, and it is the former Iggy's Restaurant, or part of the island parcel, however you want to remember the building that's located there. Bank of America is working with, I think, the redevelopment agency in a reuse of that site. So this is a project that involves the redevelopment agency, the owner of the property, and then Bank of America. So it has regulations above and beyond just the zoning that the applicant will need to address. So their first step is to come to the commission in a conceptual manner, find out your directives from a conceptual site plan standpoint. Then they'll likely go to the redevelopment agency and have a discussion on where they're at with the zoning process and what's required, as well as the redevelopment agency documents that are related to the parcel. And you may see some adjustments based on that feedback before they come back to final site plan, but we do not anticipate they would be extremely significant. So as you can see, the Iggy site, if you look at their demolition plan, it's a portion of the site. Basically, it's the building and then to what I call the mid parking on the east side of the site. They're generally keeping the landscaping areas that are intact along the streets. They will likely replace a lot of the plant materials just because of the condition of the plants at this point in time will warrant a lot of replacement, but they will maintain the trees that seem to be still at least somewhat healthy at this point in time. What we tried to do in the staff report, because it significantly changed the approval from the Iggy's restaurant site, we felt it did not qualify as a staff approval for an amended site plan. And that process, when that finding takes place, automatically puts it into the commission level. And by mandatory requirement of the ordinance, a commission review of an amended site plan is the same process as obtaining a site plan. So you'll have the two-step process of conceptual and final. We try to point out a few things. I'll kind of leave, if you have detailed questions, to shoot my way when I'm done presenting. A couple of things I just want to point out. This is in the Parish Lane Design Guidelines, and so this has a presence that is significant for the city, not only on Parish Lane, but as an entrance. Iggy's had a thematic requirement. They provided not only some of their own features that are unique to the Iggy restaurant, like the entrance with the fire pit. They also provided their outdoor seating area facing the street, some landscaping, decorative items. They included some bollard lighting and the pedestrian connections, as well as the architecture of the building. And so as staff looked at the Parish Lane Design Guidelines, one of the things that we discovered in their submittal is that the plans are not as clear, at least for most of us, to understand the design of the building from a material standpoint. I can look at it, and they're certainly creating some interest to the building and a quality building, but I think the ordinance requires them to submit a storyboard. I'm comfortable with bumping that to the final site plan if the commission is okay, but that's something that you can debate. The other issue related to the building is it does require an articulation element. The articulation element is supposed to be vertical and horizontal, but if you read the code, it's a should, and it really applies to large buildings. And this building, I believe, only has a footprint of 3,800. And so I think that's something that you can discuss on the expectations of this articulation. And the idea of articulation is when you have a wall area, you want to create some changes in that appearance so that you have some aesthetic design. And that's important to the human scale element of a building, which I think is the second element, is if the vertical and horizontal articulation is not as prominent in the commission's mind for a need, the human scale development is. I think that's something that's still really important in the Parish Lane Design Guidelines. And that human scale element is to look at the pedestrian paths, to look at the walks, to look at the canopies over the windows, some entry elements, some small plazas, like you had the fire pit with the waiting area outside of the front of the Iggy's. And I just raise that as a concern because I think the exchange, and I think your applicants, the architect firm, can weigh in. I think we want to make sure that we have at least an equal exchange of those human scale elements to the design of the site. I know this is a predominant drive-through area for uses, but it also has a significant parking lot and capacity for parking, and is required to, and they are doing it, to access the public sidewalk out on Parish Lane. And I would just like to see an argument be made that the human scale elements in the design of the building are equal to what's existing and not less. I think that's a point I try to make in the staff report. As to the issues of parking, they actually require less demand in parking for this bank use than the restaurant use. Many of you weren't a part of the original approval, I don't believe, but the MTC site across the street is actually in a shared agreement with the island parcel for parking. They actually needed that parking at the MTC site to qualify for the restaurant. Now, this site, they can self-park the bank use. So In some ways, that's an improvement, although I don't think much parking was occurring across the street anyway, unless it was maybe employees of the restaurant. One issue I do raise is the drive-through. We require for every drive lane, there needs to be a 3-car stack. So I think that's something we'd like to see depicted. And my concern is not to clog up the access lane. We have a primary through street just to the north of the proposed Bank of America. I assume from my view, a lot of the access is going to come off of Marketplace Drive and go through the site. So on-site stacking is possible for the bank use, but they have to share that with the drive of the dentist office across the way. And so I just raised that as a concern. And if a predominant use came off the frontage road, I think you have a shorter stacking capability. So I'd like to see the architects address that stacking capability to make sure that we don't have a spill out to the road. And you know, that's important. They probably can solve it fairly easy, but this is a busy area. This north area is a prominent place where fast food of Chick-fil-A, In-N-Out, they're already backing out onto the streets. And the last thing we need is to add another drive-through use that backs out onto the street. So I just raised that as an issue. Other elements I think are fairly minor. They're replacing some of the light standards for the parking lot and just talk about matching the existing design that's out there on the site is probably a good base place to start with the style of the fixtures. But other than that, I think I covered the major issues unless you have something specific. I'm comfortable letting him move to the final site plan from a staff perspective because I think the RDA will weigh in. This has been prominent in the RDA's radar for aesthetically. And so I think some discussions need to happen with the redevelopment agency on what they think the design look and the appeal of the building should be. And then that way we can come back with a materials board, some human scale elements on a final site plan if the applicant is okay with it and the commission is okay with it. If anybody has some questions, I assume we could halt and have them go to the RDA and come back to the commission, but I think that just adds additional time to their process. So I'm just trying to be sensitive to their needs too. So we're recommending approval at this point, given what we've provided in the staff report.
Great, just out of curiosity, the Parish Lane design guidelines are pretty important given that this is an entranceway into our city. And I'm just curious, was there any explanation from the applicant as to why they didn't provide a storyboard?
No, when they submitted, we were unable to talk with them the first week that they submitted. We had a development review committee with them last Monday. And so we had a short period of time to post and prepare a report. I did send the architects an email that they were missing that element, but the reports and everything needed to be published too. And so they may have some answers already. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for staff?
Yes, and this might be sort of maybe staff and sort of the applicant. Can you tell me if we've taken into consideration, I know that they're planning on widening Parish Lane, the off-ramp or the on-ramp, I guess, to go north. And that would significantly affect all of those, those lots east or north of Parish. So have we taken that into consideration with this design so that they're not, having to go back to the drawing board in a year or two? And then B, kind of related to that is I noticed what I could see was the sidewalk was right next to Parish Lane. And that I'm assuming is just that existing sidewalk. So if they're already taking that into consideration, would they, think about putting the sidewalk back so that it can, in preparation for that? Or is that something that's all going to happen in a year? Like, can you just talk through that?
Those are great questions. We had a conversation with the development review committee and the applicant regarding that issue. the position staff is taking is yes, there's probably some taking off of Parish Lane and some of the radius on Marketplace in order to do some double left-hand turns expansion. And so we anticipate there will be some acquisition by UDOT from additional right-of-way. However, at this point in time, under our ordinances, we can't, by ordinance, unless we're willing to front the money in the taking, we have to review it under the current design guidelines.
Okay.
So that's why you see that limitation. However, that's not the end of the conversation. I've talked with the applicant. I think this is an important part of the role of the RDA, is that I think that's a discussion of with the city engineer who has some preliminary, very preliminary drawings on what that take may be. And I think that's a discussion with the RDA that if they, since they have some additional design and aesthetic control of the site under the RDA agreement, will the RDA be comfortable saying, yes, develop it as is right now under current code, and whatever the take does is the consequence we live with? Or, hey, we want to plan that under the redevelopment agency purview and have that discussion on once the take happens, what is the leftover and how can we mitigate that? So we share your concerns, but we're constrained at the ordinance level at this point to honor what's in place today, not what's in place into the future. But I don't think that ends the discussion, because the RDA is by agreement has control of those aesthetics above and beyond our ordinance. And I raised that we'll probably have that discussion during conceptual presentation to the RDA. And that's why I anticipate you may see some changes come back to you for final.
Okay, and as long as the RDA is going to bring that up and the applicant then can know what their options are and say, oh, I don't want to deal with this till later, or wait, I'm redoing this whole thing, I might as well, take that into consideration now, moving the sidewalk off so that's not going to have to be repoured, or I don't know, just stuff like that. So,
right.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? Spencer?
Yeah, Corey, I've got one, and maybe this is a better question for the applicant, but looking at the floor plan, we have these drive lanes, but on the interior floor plan, I don't see like a teller area. So are they not having tellers? Are these drive-throughs only for digital transactions, ATM transactions, deposits that don't have, where are the people actually that receive these transactions? Do you know the answer to that?
I don't. Good perception. I didn't look at the interior layout. I was focused on exterior, so I think the applicant might be able to.
We'll ask the applicant then, just because your question about the drive lanes kind of prompted that. And as I'm looking at the interior, then who knows how that affects where they may lay it out on the site, if at all, differently.
Right.
So I'll ask the applicant. Thanks. And then I guess on parking, again, it's a benefit to the city in terms of overflow for the MTC. Was there a discussion, because it's an entry to the city, that, hey, go ahead and have less parking, but can you convert some of this parking to landscape as opposed to hardscape?
I think that's part and parcel to the Parish Lane design guidelines to some degree.
Yeah.
But we're limited,
it doesn't look like they would have to.
Yeah, and then the RDA may want to take out a bank of stalls if it's significant.
I'm looking at their demo limit lines, and it doesn't take that into effect. But I didn't know if there was, as part of your pre-application process, if that was brought up by anyone.
No, it wasn't.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? If not, we will invite the applicant to step forward and speak to this. And by step forward, I mean,
that should be Mr. Taylor.
Put your video on. I sure have to come up with a better way of inviting people forward. We can't do it the old-fashioned way and have people walk up to a mic. There we go. If you will just introduce yourself for us.
Hello, I'm Orlando Taylor with Gensler Architect. We're the applicant for the Bank of America project here in Centerville. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Would you like to speak to the staff's recommendation or to any of the questions that have been posed of staff before the commissioners start asking you questions?
Sure, I can definitely touch on a few things that was brought up today. The material storyboard, that's something we definitely will provide. We wanted to just get definitely a feel of what would be asked of us before we presented our material boards, but I think we are pretty much in line with the guidelines for Parish Lane and providing those required elements. The articulation of the building will definitely would provide undulation between horizontal and vertical planes. So we'll definitely be covering that in the design. The 3-car stacking requirements, we didn't show that, but we definitely meet the 3-car, possibly 4-car stacking from the transaction point of the ATM to the back of the last vehicle. All of the ATMs are considered remote ATMs. There's no transactions between bank teller members. There's no teller line. They're all remote drive-up tellers. So that's eliminates the teller line in that concept.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions for our applicant? No. Seeing no one? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate it. And if you'll just go ahead and stop your video.
Thank you, guys.
This matter has been scheduled for a public hearing, so we'll take the opportunity to open a public hearing and invite any member of the public who wishes to speak to step forward. I don't see anyone else in the waiting room other than Mr. Taylor, so we have no one there. Corey, Mackenzie, do we have anybody on the phone wishing to speak?
No, we do not.
Okay, seeing no one wishing to comment, we'll close the public hearing. Any further discussion or debate?
I'm with Corey on this. I think it's fine to approve this initial site plan. I think it's not a big deal. The applicant understands the directives that we've given and could bring back something, and I feel like we don't need to delay it, so I feel comfortable.
I agree. I think the areas of question, I guess, that staff have raised are not significant in my mind. They're things that can be easily addressed and corrected. So I don't see any reason why we shouldn't proceed with this one and let the applicant address those areas.
Yeah, and my comment would be that I'd encourage one of staff's conclusions on the art and furnishings being the gateway to the city is, quote unquote, it does not appear to staff that the new design maintains or provides substitute amenities. So to the applicant, just consider those items.
Speaking personally for myself, I always like to see a storyboard. I think that allows us the opportunity to give input to the applicant between now and the final site plan. So it's unfortunate that we don't have a storyboard, but I'm still comfortable moving forward even without one. We'll have the opportunity to re-evaluate it at the final site plan stage.
I agree, Shaylin. And I also think, though, another thing that's nice is having the RDA involved in this gives me another sense of safety net for having some of these things so we don't miss some of these things. And just so the applicant understands, we as a commission really appreciate our Parish Lane design guidelines. If you ever watched any historical meetings, I'm sure you haven't, but we really do. So those are guidelines that we follow. So we expect that those are followed.
Yeah.
I'll just make a note to the commission. I don't believe I have a conflict of interest at all with Gensler. We do have a Phoenix office, the Boyer Company does, and do a lot of work with contractors and architects in the Phoenix market, but I don't believe we have anything going on with Gensler. So just to throw it out there out of an abundance of transparency.
Thanks for the disclosure, Spencer. Any other discussion on this? If not, the chair will entertain a motion.
I got it. I hereby make a motion for the Planning Commission to accept the conceptual site plan application submitted by Deerwood Investments, Utah LLC for the proposed Bank of America development located at 782 West Parish Lane, subject to directives 1 through 7 in the staff report, and suggested reasons for actions A through D.
Second.
I'll second.
Waiting. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate? If not, we'll start with you, Commissioner Wright.
Aye.
Commissioner Summerhays,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilcox,
Aye.
Commissioner Daly,
Aye.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you very much. Moving right along, item number 4 on our agenda. So we have an amendment to chapter 12.69 medical cannabis facilities. Lisa, it looks like we're postponing this one until July 8th. Was this another noticing issue? I thought we had planned on talking about this one at our meeting.
Yes, that one has a noticing issue as well, so we'll just have to deal with it on July.
That's okay. We'll take it up at our next meeting. Which brings us, I feel like this meeting has gone shockingly fast compared to some of the other ones that we've had recently, because we are already up to item number 5, which is the Community Development Director report.
We need to get out before 8 p.m.
Update. Shush, stop it. Somebody knock on wood. Corey.
So it's posted on your agenda. I don't think there's very much you're not familiar with. Again, the Symphony Homes is bumped to your next meeting. The medical cannabis ordinance bumped to your next meeting. We do have an application for the Bell property. You've seen it in a conceptual site plan earlier. They're deciding to maybe potentially expand that site. So they're requesting a rezone for some property to add to their site. And that's been scheduled for your next meeting. And as always, we have listed your commission goals and added the one that come from the city council. And we'll get to them. I can tell you in the background, I've been working on the transportation plan element with some preliminary ideas so we can, when we decide to have a discussion and get started, that's something we need to get done by December 1st. But I think we've got some time between now and then to address these matters. So other than that, I don't have anything to note from the city council either.
Thanks, Corey. Do we have any indication as to how packed our next agenda is going to be beyond the July 8th? What's that? The next, whatever the next one is.
Mackenzie, can you think of anybody that's been into some meetings, preliminary meetings?
I don't think so. I think it's just those 3 items listed.
Okay. I'm looking for a light agenda to maybe bring a matter that Becky and I discussed. So, but we can do that at another meeting.
Yeah, we usually know about 4 weeks in advance of your meeting, we start seeing applications or calls coming in.
Great.
The suspense is palpable.
Actually, Becky, you know more about it than I do. Do you want to just give them a brief idea of what we were talking about?
Like, ooh, let's just like tease them with what we're hoping.
I am going to tease it. I want everybody thinking, what could they be bringing to us?
Well, I happen to be in the same neighborhood as the chair of the tree board, of our city tree board, and was speaking with her the other day about some trees in the city. And I said, you know, this is, you've like helped me understand a couple things that I didn't know. And she specifically talked about new development. And obviously there's not a lot of new development in Centerville, but I said, you know, I think my fellow commissioners might want to just know this information, or maybe you can just talk with us about what you as a tree board have been working on and how what you've figured out. So it's just a little informational bit about trees in our city.
You want to do a work session before a meeting, or you want to do it as part of your meeting?
Whatever. I just told Shaylin, I said, hey, she talked with me and gave me some great information, and what do you think about having her come? And Shaylin's like, yeah, let's have her come to one of our meetings. So I don't care if it's a work session or whatever, you know, whatever the commission feels like would be helpful to you. I know we had like the landmarks committee members come when we were looking at some things. And so I think it's just nice to keep that dialogue open between our different committees and different places in the city, so that we're thinking of these things as we, you know, do our duty.
I agree. I mean, we've had the landmark committee, we've had the trails committee that we've met with them. So I think that this is a great opportunity for us just to know what other resources are out there as a city. But I wanted to put it on an agenda that wasn't loaded up.
Yeah, I think if you're looking at something that maybe is 15, 20 minutes, we could do it part of an agenda. If you want a little bit more time, I would suggest a work session.
What do you guys think about doing a work session? Maybe schedule one half an hour in advance before a meeting. I'm easy either way. This is really just an idea of trying to get us more informed as a planning commission.
Yeah, I'm fine too. Does it live up to your excitement though, Spencer? Like,
I was going to ask if we have a city arborist. Geez, come on.
I don't know if we do.
I doubt we do. We have to have a big
Mackenzie's an arborist, right?
Arborist. Did you know that cities had arborists, Becky? That's the better question. Well,
I'm learning a lot. I'm learning a lot from this whole thing. So that's why I thought maybe it would be helpful. We do have arborists on our tree board. I know that.
Okay. There
So I
we go.
didn't know we have a city per se.
We have a state arborist that's a citizen of our city.
Oh, we do?
Isn't Mackenzie also some kind of certified arborist or something?
Also very well versed in trees.
It seems like we
I'm also
definitely
a
do a work
certified
session.
arborist, but
Nice.
yeah, I actually also work on the tree board with them. So
Oh, you do?
Oh, that's great.
one way or the other.
Cool.
Well, actually, Mackenzie, then, since we already have a lifeline to them through you, I was going to reach out to them, but maybe since you're on the committee, you can talk to them and say, what would be the most helpful format for us to meet with them? Is a work session better? Is a formal presentation better? Like, talk to them and let's have some communication.
Okay, I'll reach out to them.
I think the sooner the better is best for us. So like if it, whatever makes sense for them and if they need time to prepare or whatever, but I don't want us to put this off and 4 months later do it. But I just think the sooner the better, and just, it doesn't have to be a huge deal, but just give us a little bit of information, I think would be very helpful.
Okay.
And
Right.
in fact, as I think about it, Corey, just kind of a random thought to throw out there, I do like the idea of having the planning commission touch bases with some of these other committees that are doing things. And so maybe we should think not necessarily every year, but maybe every other year we invite, Trails Committee to come back. What are you doing right now? Parks Committee, what's happening right now? Just so that we can stay abreast of what's happening in our city.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Let's add it as a goal. How many goals do we have at this point?
You know me, I'm always like, ooh, let's add another goal. Let's talk about parking. Let's talk about trees. I'm so annoying. Sorry.
More goals.
We'll put that in kind of an update training goal.
Yeah.
Training.
The more information that we know, the better we can do our jobs. So, all right, moving right along. Last item on the agenda is a review of our June 10, 2020 minutes. So we'll do this in the regular course, page by page. Let me know if you have any comments or questions. So page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. Okay, I had a change on this page and sorry, I printed it out and it apparently did not save my thing when I printed it. Give me 3 seconds. There we go. I'm looking at lines 48 and 49. Chair Heyman pointed out that the property owner may be able to present a parking plan for the remaining tenant space that includes adjacent offsite parking, which is what I said. But the other point that I wanted to make sure got across in connection with that comment was the concept that, how do I see this? But I wanted to add after a comment after parking, but warned that she would not feel compelled to grant future parking modifications, particularly given that the owner was on notice of the parking issues that the property owner had created. Because that was important to me, at least in connection with recognizing that they could do the offsite parking. But we had talked a lot about you know, like are we going to feel compelled to give this because we've given an exception here. And so I just want that in the minutes themselves.
Well, and I think I pretty forcefully said that same thing.
Yeah. So I just wanted
it wasn't really in there, and I was like, should I say something about putting that in there? I think adding that's great, and you can even put my name by that too, because I very clearly said that. Okay.
Sorry. I thought when it printed that it would print my little comments that I included on the side, and it didn't. It just highlighted parking. So any other comments on page 5? No. Page 6, page 7. And with that, the chair will entertain a motion.
I move to accept the minutes of the June 10th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting as amended.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion or debate? All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And with that, wow, 2 minutes to spare. I got you all out before 8. So
Kevin made sure with that quick second there. He saw that he was counting down the clock.
all right. Well, we're not going to meet again until after the 4th. So I hope that everyone has a lovely 4th. And with that, did you need to say something, Corey, before we left? Nope. Okay.
I just want to see your faces when we say goodbye.
And with that, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.